Should we just sack this week's pod off completely and just talk about Cyberpunk and Red Dead Redemption?
Talk about Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Tipping Liverpool to stay up this year.
Thanks for explaining how the Premier League works then.
Enjoy that now.
No.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Football Times podcast with myself, RadioTimes.com sport editor Michael Potts, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by the man who will not leave the virtual studio. It's BBC Match of the Day magazine writer Jake Wilson. How are you doing, Specs?
I am good. You just can't get rid of me, can you?
I can't. You just keep going back. Yay. Where are you, Stubbsy? Where are you, Stubbsy? Come on, boy. We're getting ready for a big old Christmas with plenty of football coming on TV. But before all of the festive rush starts, well, I guess this is kind of the start of it, really, because we have a full round of games on TV this weekend from the Premier League. And then we have a full batch of games next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, all live on Amazon Prime. So you've got 20 games of football coming up in the next. Oh well, I mean, there are more games and more leagues going on, but 20 games of Premier League football coming on over the next few days. We're going to be taking a look at some of the biggest games happening this weekend. We're going to run through our Fantasy Premier League delights this week, Jake Wilson. Delights this week. That's just about enough of introduction waffle. Let's dive straight in with Leeds versus West Ham. That's a Friday night kickoff. So you get your weekend starts early. Fantasy Premier League players, take note of the deadline. And that is live on Sky Sports Premier League and Main Event and Now TV. It kick off. Leeds, very much. I mean, I know we talked about Spurs and City being all or nothing in terms of the Amazon series, but Leeds are very much an all or nothing team. I can't quite get a read on Leeds at the moment. In the last six, they've either conceded 3 or more goals in 3 of those games, and then kept clean sheets in 3 of those games. You're never quite sure which Leeds is going to turn up. No,
you don't, and maybe it's because they had an Amazon series as well. Maybe it is that. There is
not
that
an all or nothing, though, is it?
It's not an all or nothing, but they did have one. It still happened. Yeah, they're a funny one. They've given Bielsa's given us as much info as he can on what to expect this week, though. We've got the starting 11 in his press conference the other day. He was asked a question and he read it out. Meslier, Dallas, Ayling, Cooper, Alioski, Phillips, Rafinha, Click, Rodrigo, Harrison, Bamford. That's it. We know. That's the lineup.
I love Bielsa.
So if you're playing FPL and you're like, "Ooh, shall I bring the Cuxton Cafu in?" You can bring him in because he's starting this week. Dallas is there. So if you've got a few 4.6 mil spare, then you know he's going to be in your side. So yeah, Bielsa is
Cafu, the Cookstown Cafu. That's an incredible line. My mate grew up with him, actually. My mate from Cookstown grew up with Stuart Dallas. So yeah, I was always like, "Oh, whoop-de-doo, mate, you grew up with a lower championship sort of backup player for Leeds, and now he's like his Premier League starting wing back." Yeah, there we go.
Pod, mate. Get that link going.
I know. Get him on the pod.
Add him to the list.
Our new favourite one. Yeah, it's quite hard to work out why, isn't it? Like you say, they're predictable in their lineup, I suppose. But you know, the games they've conceded 3 or 4 to have been Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Leicester. I don't know, maybe all quick front lines. Eze, Pulisic, Vardy have all scored against them. Maybe that bit of pace they can't quite deal with at the back. Or being brave against them. I mean, Leeds are a brave side. Maybe teams actually, thinking let's have a go at these boys and try and exploit them might be a way through them.
Definitely, and I think they've had quite a few centre back problems of late. Like for this week, they are playing Ayling and Cooper at the back, but Ayling's usually seen on one of the fullback positions. And Cooper hasn't been touted as a long-term option as centre-back. I think long-term he wants to play Llorente and Koch as these 2 centre-backs, Bielsa, but he's not got them available to potentially the end of the year, and that's just one of them. So there has been some injury disruption there, and that's not what you want when you've just come up to the Premier League and you're facing Timo Werner and Jamie Vardy.
No, not at all.
Obviously they've got the style they like to play, high intensity, high action. So that definitely works against teams that maybe are a little bit more resistant to taking it to them. But I know Wolves, when we played them, we beat them, and we did a bit of both. You know, we're very good defensively, but then we'll attack teams quickly when we can. So Bielsa needs to make sure that, defensively, they've got a little bit of stability, even if they can't keep picking the same centre-backs week in, week out.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this high intensity sort of the approach that they play in every single game, no matter of the opposition, which is very, very commendable. But you do think this season is a marathon, not a sprint. And I mean, this season of all seasons, we're approaching Christmas, and some teams have only played 10 games, and obviously we're used to being sort of halfway through the season, nearly at this point. And you do just worry once this pile up, could this pile up just take a bit of wind out of their sails maybe? And then in 2021, there's still a heck of a lot of football to play. I'm a little bit worried for Leeds. I do like them, and I wanted them to come up for years. I love Bielsa, I love some of their players in there. Just worry that they might run out of steam, and that you see, don't you? Sometimes in the back end of a season, teams just I don't know, they lose that buzz, that initial rush in the Premier League. You do just wonder whether, when it gets to the nitty gritty of March, April, whether they're still going to have enough left in the tank to see them through. And this is where crowds, I mean, I've been thoroughly enjoying watching matches with natural crowd sounds, not some sort of FIFA nonsense. Having proper crowds getting behind them, and if by the end of the season, hopefully, once we all get this thing stuck in our arms, you wonder whether a bit of a fuller Elland Road could be a bit of a crucial factor for them as the season wears on. But you need to manage that those injuries and fitness worries at the moment over Christmas, and also they're coming up against West Ham, who are, safe to say, they're flying in the league right now. Obviously not a great result against Man United, but a very, very good performance in the first half. Did you catch any of that at all, or were we not? Nice.
They were unfortunate, really, to kind of lose that badly. They seemed very in control in the first half, especially, and then United, as they seem to do, are finding some comebacks down the back of the sofa. So I think United got away with one there, more so than West Ham being poor. They did obviously throw away a lead quite easily in the end, but all over the pitch there is quality and there is class, and there's not many positions that you could look to upgrade. So they're kind of playing the back five now, and that seemed to work in. Cresswell as the left centre back seems to have settled in really well, and Ogbonna seems to be playing really well. Central midfield, we spoke about Souček a lot on here as well, doing the dirty work and playing forward, scoring goals. That's brilliant. I think the only place that you'd really kind of look and be a little bit worried for West Ham fans now is up top. Antonio's still out injured with his hamstring that he did against Villa a couple of weeks ago. And then so they're playing Aller back up top, who looks a little bit fresher, a little bit more mobile, maybe a little bit more clinical than in the past. He got a goal this season, but that's not the confidence builder that you want in your striker. You want a striker that scores every other week and is consistent and always has been. And I think maybe that if they're going to look at anyone in January, a top level clinical forward, maybe someone like Moussa Dembele at Lyon, who was phenomenal at Celtic, not super cheap, but if West Ham have real ambitions to get that Europa League place, get 6th, 7th, then maybe a striker is what they need.
What is a transfer window without a West Ham striker hunt? I feel like every single window, it's just like, oh yeah, lads, we're going to get Lacazette, we're going to get Carlos Bacca, we're going to get Scott Hogan, we're going to get Jordan Hugo. It's just like, it's amazing. They aim for the very heights and end up sort of, maybe not quite hitting the heights. But West Ham and that striker position has long been a bit of a poison chalice, really, hasn't it? They're an interesting team. I think Bowen's doing really well on the side. He probably should have scored the other night, to be fair. But he was getting in behind Man United sort of at will, really. And that's probably why he should have been more clinical with his chances. But And Haller as well. He's one of those players, isn't he, where you really want it to work. Or well, I do. I really want it to work for him because he's so big and strong, and you just think like there's so much power in this man. And it's like if he just the other night when he slipped over that crucial moment, had he scored there in front of the fans against Man United, everybody's excited. That could have been a real turning point, I think, in his West Ham career. It's not to say that can't happen this weekend, next weekend, whenever it is. But I still think there's a player in there somewhere. And we've seen him in the Cups performing well. And this is a time as well when a lot of West Ham sort of big money spending signings, whatever you want to call them, they haven't been consistent. And a few of them have already been shipped out. And Haller's sort of stuck around, maybe more out of necessity. But you just think like, come on, boy! Like the rest of the team is massively improved this time around, and it's just kind of like, come on, Haller, like get that goal, go on a run, go on a streak, force yourself into contention because he's obviously good enough, he's obviously talented enough. It's just like, come on, boy, break out of that, maybe downward confidence spiral. And obviously Antonio, when he is fit, great striker, and seems to be getting better in his later years as well, or maybe more appreciated in his later years. It's an interesting one.
Definitely. Like, they've got the players behind the striker. They've got Bowen and Fornals who've been playing regularly. But then you brought Ben Rama in from Brentford, who can't get a start. And from having watched him in the Championship, he is supremely talented. And if he gets a shot, he will tear defenders to shreds. But then they've got like Lanzini and Snodgrass and Yarmolenko still. So making that work with the striker, like I said, I'm with you on Haller. He was great in Germany. I just don't hope it isn't one of those players that's brilliant somewhere, but maybe is in the wrong club playing the wrong way for him. Hopefully that isn't the case. But yeah,
he's got the attributes. Sorry to cut in there. I think he's got the attributes to. He's the sort of player who will go back to Germany, go back to France, wherever he wants to, wherever he's going, and absolutely tear it up. Like, I still think he's probably got that in his locker, and it's such a shame that some players maybe can't quite hit the heights in the Premier League. But he's strong enough, he's big enough, and but for a slidey stud the other night, he would have put one in the net and got his season properly underway. Prediction: Leeds versus West Ham.
Leeds at home, but West Ham with the form, it's hard to call. I think I'm going to go West Ham. They've been playing really well. The form's on their side, and momentum's really important. So yeah, maybe Haller gets one. Maybe he nods one in over the injured centre backs. Maybe that's it. 1-0.
1-0, Seb Haller. Come on, boy. Let's do this. We believe in you. You just head air there.
Yeah, you can feel it, can't you? The ball's coming over, you can see it. Bang.
Sometimes I forget that we're actually a podcast and not a video. Like, I wish people could see some of the actions you come out with. Yeah, magical. Moving on, we have Wolves versus Aston. It's your boys. It's the mighty Wolves versus Aston Villa. It's a Saturday 12:30 kickoff on BT Sport. Couple of quick ones about Wolves, I guess. You're in the sort of the time where we're playing without Raul Jimenez. Obviously, he was still recovering from his injury. I mean, it wasn't a great day out against Liverpool, was it? It wasn't a fantastic adapting to life without Jimenez starting up front. Where are you at? What happened there? What went wrong? I'm trying to formulate my question here. What went wrong?
I think the Liverpool game's a poor indicator of where Wolves are. We were saying, me and my Wolves supporting friends, that it was quite nice that we get turned over like that so infrequently. But we did get absolutely turned over. We had a couple of sniffs, but it was really not a great performance. And there was a couple of my mates that turned off when I played FIFA at 60 minutes, and we don't hear that very often as Wolves fans. We're pretty dedicated, but I stuck it out, and it was tough watching. And I think we could have a few moments of those this month. Jimenez is such a big miss. He's so key to how we play. Not just his hold-up play and his link-up play with the fast forwards, but how hard he works and how clinical he is in front of goal. Wolves, as we know, don't score quite as freely as some of the other teams in the league, but Jimenez was there to bail us out quite a lot. And even though, Neto's been on the score sheet recently, Podence has been on the score sheet recently, Traore looks a player reinvigorated, without that central focal point in our attack, that we're so used to. It could be a little bit of a tricky time. Now, do we try Fabio Silva for this time and just give him some time to learn the Premier League and hope the results are okay? Potentially, but he is a young man, a very talented young man, but a very young man at that, with not a lot of professional experience. Do we put Traore through the middle, who, as we know, blows hot and cold, even though he is wonderful at his best? So, Nuno's got a real job on his hands to pick that front line. And then if we play a 4 or a 5 at the back as well to accommodate. So it's transitionary time, but hopefully January we bring in some cover and that helps out in some way.
I'd be interested to see Fabio Silva. I kind of think like there's so many times, isn't there, when you see at all levels this is, but when you have untried youngsters or whatever who are sort of forced into game. I mean, look at Liverpool. You've got these untried youngsters playing in Champions League games and playing, coming off the bench, and you've got Nat Phillips playing sort of week in, week out now at centre back, and kind of you can tell he isn't, in the best respect, he's not a top class Premier League defender. He probably, Championship maybe is his level at the moment, and yet because he's slotted into that side nicely, into a good, well-oiled unit, playing the same system, the same style alongside good players, he's sort of being elevated to that level. And I wonder whether with Fabio Silva, obviously he's had probably a bit more experience than Nat Phillips at a decent standard of football. Obviously a very different position as well. But you do wonder whether this is actually the perfect chance to play him. It's I wonder, Podence, Neto, Traore, there's not like a great deal of height particularly in there. There's not a great deal of, I mean, they're all technically fantastic players. They've got a bit of pace about them. They know how to score a goal. But I wonder if you just maybe need that natural clinical striker in there he's clearly done it at youth level and what have you. I do just think this is probably the time to go with him. Even if it's 2 or 3 games, even if he doesn't score, as long as he's got the mental toughness, if say in 3 or 4 games he doesn't score a goal, as long as he's got the toughness to think, you know what, give it my best shot, I'll get another chance, I'll go again. It doesn't, completely break him over Christmas. I don't see what the problem is with starting him there.
I think he's built very differently to Raul. He's not quite as tall. He's not quite as strong. I think that's kind of how we've been playing. We've been utilising Jimenez's his height and his strength. And when we get down the wings, when Neto and Podence have got the ball, we've lacked for some time bodies in the box around Jimenez. And without Jimenez, I think we're really going to be light in the box. Dendonckner, he powers into the box, and he did against Liverpool a few times, but he never looks confident in himself. Like he looks like surprised when the ball hits him on the head almost. And that's quite frustrating. We don't really have like a Souček, a strong midfielder that can burst through. Our midfielders are cultured, are classy. They're Neves, they're Moutinho, breaking down attacks, starting new things, setting the tempo. And then going forwards, we've got lots of smaller players, and Fabio Silva kind of fits into that mould. But yeah, not a lot of professional experience at all. He scored for our under-23s, and I wouldn't mind seeing him play, but I wouldn't be confident that we're gonna beat teams and we're gonna dominate in the air in the same way until maybe we bring in another striker in the mould of Jimenez. We've been linked with Valencia's Maxi Gomez quite a lot. The Bull, he is nicknamed, which gives you a clear picture of how he plays. And I think that would quite suit us. Fabio is definitely one for the future, but you're right, maybe he could be the present. We'll trust in Nuno.
Quite like that sort of. Just sorry for most of the way you were talking there. I just kept thinking of all the Wolves players as just little glasses of champagne walking about the pitch, just like really classy, but not quite a pint. Sometimes you just need a pint in the field.
Yeah, you need Jamie Vardy in his Red Bull, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely that. And they're up against Aston Villa. I think we've chatted about this before. Just in one word, is this a derby game?
Yes.
That's one word, and that's all I need to know. I think that says more than 20.
It's a derby game, like you said, but it's not the derby game.
Yeah,
So,
I'll give you that. Villa, they're coming off this sort of enforced break. I feel like they could sort of burst out the traps here a little bit after that Newcastle game was postponed last week due to a COVID outbreak on Tyneside. I guess that was probably done them the world of good, really, won't it? I feel like we're going to keep coming back to fitness over the course of this season. If it already feels like a bit of a theme, and just having that almost international break type week off, that surely has done their players a world of good. Obviously, a bit of a weird run as well. Since that 7-2 against Liverpool, they've beaten Leicester and Arsenal, but then they've lost out to Leeds, Southampton, Brighton, West Ham, and those are the teams, aren't they? Who I don't think any of those, Leeds, Southampton, Brighton, West Ham, I don't think any of those teams are in enormous, red alert danger. And they'll all actually be looking at the same spots that Villa are looking at. I think that's very much the sort of upper bottom half. I guess Southampton look like they're probably the exception and aiming a lot higher, potentially West Ham as well. But I think they would all probably take that sort of 11th, 12th-ish sort of position. And those are absolutely the teams you need to beat in this league. I know Watkins maybe not quite being on top form at the moment for them. Grealish still, being Jack Grealish and being excellent. But yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it, where you need that consistency at this level. And they must be looking at Wolves and thinking, without Jimenez, might have a bit of a chance here.
Yeah, I think teams will fancy us a bit now. I think they'll attack us slightly more. But I think you're right again on the fitness front. Having a week off would have done the world of good. And 4 losses in the 5 previous to that break would have given, there's some time to work on some things. One thing I do like about Villa is they do seem to have goals in their side. I know they haven't scored in every one of the games they've played recently. But from set pieces, you've got Tyrone Mings and you've got Ezri Konsa, who are 2 big defenders and very capable of scoring headers and proving it. And then you've got Grealish, who is phenomenal on the pitch and will score and will assist basically every game. And Watkins on his day, breakaways, running at defenders, running in behind. It's always a danger. So they do have goals, Villa, but I think a bit of consistency is needed. But when they came so close to not being in this division last season, I think if you gave them kind of lower mid-table, that probably is acceptable. If they come 14th, 15th, that's not the end of the world. I don't know if anyone's going to be calling for Dean Smith's head. So yeah, obviously Wolves fans got a bit riled when Villa came up season before, and they were shouting, we're going to be above Wolves, we're going to get into Europe, look at our players, we've got Grealish. It didn't quite happen for him last season, but they look a lot.
Look at that smug little face. Look at that smug little face over there.
I'm trying to be very impartial here. But yes, so I'm not super confident about this one, and I don't think I will be super confident until we see some striker progress one way or another. But Villa have got goals in them. Wolves have got fewer goals in them. It's
Live.
Precarious. This one's precarious.
You've really sold that one then. I actually just need to apologise to Ollie Watkins here because he does have 3 in his last 4. They all came within 2 games. Hasn't scored in 2 games. It's a bit of a drought, Ollie. What are you doing, pal? No, he's a very good striker.
Give him a penalty quick.
Yeah, yes. Oh man, he's going to score a hat-trick now.
No,
In
he's
fact,
not.
you know what? You know what?
He's not going to score a hat-trick. He's going to score none, and Wolves are going to win.
I've just wrapped myself into about 7 different knots there. So I'm just going to say, what's your prediction for this one?
I can't predict that Wolves aren't going to win a Midlands derby. So I'm going to say we'll squeak a 1-0. Podence nipping in and chipping the ball over the keeper. Something like that.
Very nice. Not that you've dreamed about that at all.
No.
I'm gonna go with Villa.
Oh, right then. I see how it is.
I am gonna go with Villa.
Yeah.
And not just out of some sort of Ollie Watkins apology prediction. But no, I'm going to go with Villa. I think, like you said, they're kind of saturated with goals, aren't they? Like, even the likes of McGinn and Hurahan, set pieces and all that sort of stuff as well. They can be quite direct when they need to be. I think they'll have probably looked at that Liverpool performance and not obviously not that they're anywhere near Liverpool's level or style of performance, but they will see that as there's some cracks there. I looked at, actually, quickly, Semedo. Bit hot and cold, Semedo. Is that just me from what I've seen? I feel like he sometimes just looks a little bit out of position. I don't know. Maybe not the most disciplined. I don't know if that comes with being a Barca and you don't have to defend.
Yeah, basically. I think because he's asked to be up and down the pitch, he is settling into that role in this Wolves side. He did get caught out for one of the goals recently, and it got brought up in the analysis quite strongly. But he is obviously supremely talented. He's very good on the ball. I think he is an upgrade on Doc all round, but the consistency and that little bit of strength just the consistency that Doc brought, we loved. But we do like Semedo. He's showing signs, but we're going to give him a little bit of time. It takes people some time to adapt to new leagues. So thumbs up for Semedo.
Spoken like a true, desperately optimistic fan. Moving on. Once you have watched Villa's great win against Wolves, you can switch over the channel to Sky Sports Premier League main event and Now TV for the 5:30 kickoff. Oh, it's a bit of a cracker. It's Manchester United versus Manchester City. I mean, this is not our first rodeo when we're talking about Man United after a crippling defeat. I know what you're going to say. That's the thing. I know what you're going to say now, and you probably know what I'm going to say now.
Can we find that clip from a few weeks ago? Oh, he's doing a really good job, I think. He's doing really good. Man United look much better. And
why did you go more Cockney when trying to do an impression of me? Yeah, mate, he's done all right, mate. Yeah.
Let's live in London, you know. So sold out to the hustle and bustle. Yeah. So what are we thinking? Ollie in, Ollie out. Ollie is fine.
I don't know. You know, I'm leaning more and more Ollie out, but I just think so much of this is. Can you blame the players for not having a shred of backbone between them? Not holding back there. But I look at that team. I watched the other night, and I was impressed by. Well, McTominay's got a bit of a shout on him. McTominay is sort of that bit of aggression, which is good. He clearly cares. I'm sure there are others in there who care, and I'm not having a total character assassination across the board there. But people like Maguire, I think he's a really nice guy. Really, really like him. I like him for England. I think he's had a hard time with he's over scrutinized sometimes. It just doesn't always inspire. You don't know what happens behind the scenes, but he doesn't always inspire that sort of classic Man United turn of the century Keane-esque we will not accept defeat. His post-match interviews are very raw and very honest. I just don't always see that sharp glint in the eye which says, you know what, we're going to come back next week and destroy whoever it is, no matter who they are.
I think there is a point there on Maguire, definitely. But maybe it's the question. It shouldn't be on Harry Maguire wanting it enough. It maybe should be, actually, should Man United have spent £80 million on Harry Maguire? Because when you look at a similar transfer like Virgil van Dijk, that no one can question how perfect that decision was from a board level to sanction that sort of money on a centre-back. whereas Man United's board sanctioning that sort of money on Harry Maguire, who would, yes, had been very good at Leicester and is very good on the ball, but it has been seen, hindsight's very good, that maybe that £80 million was less well spent than the 75 on Virgil van Dijk.
Different sort of players, yeah, because I think Van Dijk is one of those who just dictates the whole team from centre back. He's like a quarterback almost. Like if you go the NFL sort of way, he dictates the game as a centre back, whereas Maguire feels like a really, really expensive, like a no-nonsense defender, or he should be that. That's what I see him as. I don't see him as this incredible technical sort of gifted ball player. I see him as a head and legs, essentially. Do you know what I mean? Like, stick a foot in, stick a head in, job done. Yeah, I really do like him. I think he's still a good centre-back. He is a good centre-back. The other night, again, I feel like he should have been automatically, instinctively sending that ball. I think it was the third goal, just sending that ball halfway to the other side of Europe, pretty much. Like, he just sort of left it. And it was like, I know De Gea probably should have shouted. De Gea is another one who I just don't think has that presence, maybe, that Man United need. Just looks a bit limp across the park, I think, Man United. I really like Fernandes, just quality, absolute quality. He kind of drags. He's one player who drags others to raise their game, or I feel like he does. He's sliding balls through and forcing those ahead of him to make runs. He's, free kicks, he's hitting the bar with them, coming very close. He's the guy who is keeping Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in a job. I think he's the one who is lifting the team. I don't really see anybody else in that team really, raising other people's games. I want to say it as well, dare I say, not always the biggest fan of Rashford. I think Rashford is a talented boy, and he scores some absolute worldies. I just think when the going gets tough, he disappears a little bit. I genuinely didn't know he was on the pitch. I didn't know he was on the pitch for a long time the other night. And I think sometimes you need more than that sort of magical moment every so often. He needs to be talking to those around him. I don't think I've ever really seen him sort of like chatting on to people or pointing. And I don't know. He could be more of a leader from the front, is what I feel with Rashford.
I think we've been kind of shown by the media so often. In my brain, I've just got pictures of Man United players with the camera just focused on them being a little bit disappointed. Like they've just given away a corner when they could have like cleared the ball. And it's just them being a bit like, and I just feel like I've got pictures of basically every player in Man United doing that. Martial just kind of hitting the keeper when he really should be scoring. Lindelof looking ice cool and then giving away a cheap free kick or something. I think there is a few too many moments from like the majority of players doing that. And I think you're right with Rashford, because he is obviously supremely talented. And I don't think we should forget how young he is. There's a lot of responsibility on those shoulders. But at this point in Man United's life cycle, when, things look good and then things look terrible, as they always do with Man United, it's one or the other. There are players that you want. I think you want to see Cavani on the pitch now, that kind of siege mentality, that kind of fight, that bite, that grit, which is why I quite like you shouting out Scott McTominay as well. The eFootball PES 2020 cover star, Scott McTominay.
That's what he's famously known as.
Oh yeah. That's what the mates call him down the pub. I'm not sure he's the most supremely talented player there, but that he's going to fight and scrap and have that grit. And like you said, I don't quite see that from every player. So there's problems in that United side, as we very well know.
I think that they are just technically very, very talented. It's not about ability, because if it's on ability, that squad is as good as pretty much any in the league, or certainly the 11. You could line up that 11, and on paper, sort of, it would go toe to toe with pretty much everyone. It's just it clearly is mentality, and you see with the comebacks and the near comeback the other night. Just one goal and it just flicks a switch, and suddenly it's like their brains sort of just engage, something activates in all those Man United players, and that's where it's a shared responsibility, I think, between these players having. I think there was an interesting point made actually. I think was it Scholes I mean, Scholes are third now. Just saying that Scholes saying they should have been up for that game. You shouldn't need like sort of coaxing to get up for a Champions League game like that of that magnitude. And it just didn't look like they were up for it. So I think there's got to be a lot of, looking into yourselves from Man United players. Also, on Ole's part as well to set them up in the best way possible. Don't think his game management has been particularly superb in the last few weeks, really. There's obviously, I just think this is a collective effort. I don't think it's as simple as sack the manager and everything is bright and rosy. I think there's a lot of soul searching that needs to happen at Man United.
Yeah, totally agree.
And a brief one on Manchester City. Obviously, big Manchester derby this. Manchester City up to 7th, which sounds just completely weird to say. I wrote that on my notes. Manchester City up to 7th. Feels like they're coming into a little bit of form with a lot of runway ahead of them in terms of decent fixtures coming up. 5 clean sheets in a row in all competitions since their Spurs win. Since their Spurs defeat. 8 out of 10 games, clean sheets. The only teams who have found a way past are Spurs and Liverpool. Aguero coming back, scored the other night. De Bruyne got a full 90 minutes rest the other night. Sterling was rested. Ferran Torres, your boy, still scoring. They seem to have turned a little bit of a corner, and this could be a pretty... this is a big game for Man United to try and weather the storm because City are coming for them.
Definitely. I think defensively they're looking much better with Ruben Diaz playing a lot more. I think he's brought a bit of consistency back there. And we spoke about the problems they've had up top. Gabriel Jesus being injured. Sergio Aguero been missing. Obviously massive players to replace. And they've played a range of players across the front line. Sterling and Torres among them who've done okay, but haven't been prolific. I think they're kind of missing a little bit of that David Silva class, that invention, that kind of holding the ball until the perfect moment for the pass to be made through that back line. Obviously, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, who's wonderful, but I think his passing game is slightly different to David Silva's. I think David Silva works in those edge-of-the-box situations where it's just a needle point pass through the lines, where Kevin De Bruyne is slightly better at those kind of sweeping long balls or those fizz through balls. So I think they've missed a bit of that David Silva class, which is why I'd love to see him going for Grealish in January. But that's another conversation.
You do want those players who can sort of not just pick out a magical moment or destroy a player at will. You want those players just who are sort of saturated with quality, who just everything they do is just a little, a confident little touch here, a confident little touch there. I think of David Silva, I think of people like, Iniesta and stuff with Barcelona, where I'm sure they've got a lot of talented boys there now, but they're not just oozing that class throughout the game. And like you saw with Grealish, again, for England, probably the best example recently of a player who just will carry the ball. Everything they do is just sharp and classy.
Yeah, it's hard to replace those. I think we've seen, across the board for most of the big clubs now that they've lost them. Those small touches done perfectly is a really important thing. So they've missed him, but with Aguero back, obviously that's going to help if he can start scoring again and start playing and link in play in a slightly different way. I think the signs are good for City. And no, it's not too late for a title charge. So do not write them out, Michael.
Interesting. I mean, not that I got them written out, on my imaginary writing out of the title race board. 2 questions for you, Mr. Wilson, before we head on to Fantasy Premier League tips and joys. Prediction.
City 1-0.
City.
Yeah.
I'm going. I mean, this is exactly the sort of game that Man United win, isn't it? This is exactly the sort of game they'll just go out and win 2-0. Let's go City. Let's go City 2-0. But we all know this is going to be United 2-0. And your second question, Ole in, Ole out.
Oh, I'm so glad that's not my decision. Ole in. I don't like managers getting sacked ever, but mid-season, definitely. What's going to happen over the course of this season that they can't come back from if they get Allegri in July?
I'd like to see him give him more time, and I'd like to see I'd like to see the players work up their ideas, if I'm honest. I still think you can't just keep flipping and changing between man. I know they've had Solskjaer for a little while now, but those players need to look at themselves and G themselves up for the big games starting this weekend. Moving on to Fantasy Premier League before we wrap it up for the week. I had a pretty good week last time out, you know. Defenders are the way. I got rid of Cody, I got rid of Semedo, and I got rid of some other nobody. I went in for Hugo Lloris, I went in for Eric Dyer, and I went in for Yannick Vestergaard. And
nice. Good shouts.
If that's not the best idea, then I don't know what is. Vestergaard with a goal, Lloris with a clean sheet, Dyer with a clean sheet. I think Spurs, Chelsea, Man City, they're the defenders you're looking at the moment. We've all conceded 11 or fewer this season so far. Chelsea probably want to go Chilwell, Zuma. City would be Walker. I'd always go with Kyle Walker, but he didn't play against Fulham, which just makes it a bit tricky. And my final tip is your boy Danny Ings is back. And he already scored. He came on for 45 minutes, and of course he was going to score. Crazy. But I'm very tempted for a very swift return to Dings.
Yeah, he's hard to look past, isn't he? He's so clinical. Maybe Everton faltering, Calvert-Lewin maybe taking a risk, maybe getting him out. I don't know. Depends how much money you got. Depends what your front line looks like. But yeah, I do love Ings. And I think I agree with you on the defenders. I've got Chilwell and Zuma. And my defence is where I'm looking to make a transfer this week. I think James Justin is on he's on very thin ice. He's on his last chance. He's got Brighton with Leicester this week, and if he doesn't get a points haul, he's got 3 points in his last 3 weeks. I'm not happy with that. I think it's Ruben Diaz time. I think that's a good way into the City back line. Pair him and Cancelo, play Zuma and Chilwell, and then I still like McCarthy in goal. I like McCarthy. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I was buzzing when Vestergaard hit that scored. I was just like, yes, my boy. Because a few people in my league have Kyle Walker-Peters and McCarthy. And then I was the only one with Vestergaard. And I was just like, yeah, boy, I am the special one. Yeah. I had my Mourinho moment last week. That was pretty cool. My final one as well, I've given up with Rodriguez, James Rodriguez. He's gone. Yeah. He's always going. I need to know whether Pedro Neto is a shout.
I like Neto. He's going to be playing now, week in, week out. But like I said, Wolves don't score loads, and he's not like super bargain. He's cheap, but not super bargain. So I'm not really looking at any Wolves players at the minute. I'm a little tentative, Michael.
Interesting. Because my plan was, I've got Shea Adams. So the plan was potentially Rodriguez and Adams out, and then have, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, wrapping it up, what's coming up in Match of the Day magazine this time around, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, so we had our Christmas special, and now it's my favourite time of year. Yes, we have a very special mag on shelves right now, and it includes our 100 best players in the world rankings. So yeah, all the biggest ballers are in this. Messi's in it, Ronaldo, Sterling, Lukaku, Benzema, Sancho, Werner, Lewandowski, Oblak, Neymar, Mbappe. They're all in there, ranked. So you'll get to find out who the best player in the world is, according to Match of the Day magazine. You can't miss this one, Michael, mate.
Wow. I thought you were just going to say Marilyn Monroe, Ryan, started the fire. I thought you were just rattling off all of those names there. I genuinely wish people could see this. I wish people could see how excited you get and how big my smile is when you do the Match of the Magazine hype bit. But anyway, glorious. Thank you very much, as ever, Mr. Wilson. We'll see you next week for our we're going to go for a Football Times Christmas edition. Nothing to do with the fact that we're just awful at Christmas, but we're going to go for the big old Christmas edition, because what is Christmas without some form of Radio Times input? You can come to radiotimes.com/sport for all of the latest sporting previews. We will keep you up to date with all of the Christmas games, all the schedules, just everything you need to know to watch all of the football this Christmas time. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.